Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video on the channel. Today, I want to talk about a technical formation that I have been seeing quite a bit on this market. As you guys know, the overall market trend is definitely to the downside, but over the last week, we have been seeing a little bit of a pop on a few names, whether that is a pop off of technical support or that's some upside off of earnings. Now, I've noticed that these pops quickly fade, they quickly lose momentum, and we are seeing areas where previous support is turning back into resistance on this small pop that we are getting on the market. Now, what I've done in the past week, I've traded 3 stocks very aggressively: Roku, Zoom, and Square. All 3 of these names you probably know have been very weak over the last few months, and all 3 of these stocks got a push higher, whether that was off earnings or whether that was off a technical bounce. All 3 of these stocks failed that push and rolled back to the downside. And I want to go ahead and show you guys this technical formation that I'm not seeing just on these names, but on quite a few names that you might be able to take advantage of. So let's go ahead and go through the trades that I took this week on Roku, on Zoom, and on Square. Almost all 3 of these stocks, the exact same technical formations that I basically just copied from one trade to another that worked out beautifully this week. If I'm spotting this technical formation, then you guys are probably seeing it as well, and that means I want to go ahead and share it with you guys, talk about it, and make sure that you can take advantage of it. So let's go ahead and jump into this video. Press that like button, subscribe to the channel, and make sure to press the bell down below so that you guys know every single time that I post. All right, guys, so let's go ahead and pop onto the charts and look at this formation that I have been spotting on quite a few names. We're going to go ahead and start with my first trade, and that was on Roku. On your screen, this is the daily chart on Roku. Now, what you guys can see here on the chart, you can see a gap down off of earnings, and over the last few days, over the last week, we have been seeing upside. This upside has been happening on a lot of stocks, and it's not just Roku. This is on Square, this is on CRM based off earnings, this is on Zoom as well off of earnings. We're going to look at all of those, and this exact type of formation has happened, and the downside plays have been beautiful. So looking at this chart, what you guys can see is we got that gap down on earnings. Now, over the last few days, we have filled that gap back to previous support. Now, you can see we pushed higher, came right back into this previous support, and when we came back, we turned that support into resistance. This is a very common thing that I have been spotting. Now, what I wanted to do when I saw Roku come back to that upside on the daily chart, remember, this is a longer term view on the daily chart, and that's really what I've been basing a lot of my trades off of, is this daily chart resistance that is previous support. So you can see we got that push back into previous support, turning it into resistance, and I caught a trade based off of that. So right here, guys, on back on the 28th of February, I went ahead and took a Roku 3-4-120 put for 86 cents. I ended up closing that Roku put a little bit further down. You guys can see it right here. Closed that Roku put yesterday for about 101% profit. So a very nice trade. And what you can see during that time when I was looking at it, you can see I was just spotting how Roku was pushing back higher, coming right back to fill that gap, back to previous support, turning it into resistance, and I was looking for that thing to fade back down. I didn't believe that a stock like Roku, which has been getting beat down very hard, could get through that previous support. For a stock to get through previous support, like you guys see there on your chart, both here on the left side and here on the right side, it takes a lot of momentum. And we know in a weak market, it is very difficult for a stock like Roku especially to get through a level like that. And I have been looking out for this formation all over the place. Whenever I find it, I take a downside play. Until it doesn't work, I'm going to continue to try it. And I've tried it 3 times this week on Roku, Square, and Zoom, and they have all worked out. So looking at this, you can see that's when I got in, and the last 3 days we have faded off that move. And that is exactly what we're going to be talking about today. This type of fade off of a pushback higher into previous support. So that was my first trade. I don't want to get too into the trades. I want to talk more about this formation because it's not so important about the trades I've taken. It's about trying to show you guys what I see and maybe you can catch it yourself. So that's the first one, Roku. Very nice trade. A little bit of a pushback, and you can really call this a little bit of a bear flag, right? You can see this is sort of bear flagging, and it's going to break back down. And I'm still in a Roku put as of today. So I'm still looking to see if I can catch more downside because I believe that we are going to find it very difficult to get back above a previous support, turning into resistance. That's the first look, and I'm really just analyzing these on the daily charts. We can also break it down to the 4-hour, which you can see this as well. Here on the 4-hour, you can see the exact same thing. Push higher, back into previous support, turning it into resistance. Now, that was the first one, but there's a lot more examples. The second one that I want to go over is Square. All right, guys, so here is Square on your daily chart, and you can see this looks very, very similar. You got your push higher over the last few days, and where did you push into? You pushed in right to a previous resistance point right here on Square. You can see it was starting to push back higher. We got a little bit of a push over the last few days, and I saw Square pushing back into a major resistance level. Now, what do you know about Square that is very similar to Roku? It has been an extremely weak stock, and for an extremely weak stock that has been getting sold into for almost 2 to 3 months, for that stock to get over previous resistance, it's going to take a lot. It's going to take a very large market move to the upside, and we are just not seeing that happen. So when I'm seeing pushes to the upside on some of these stocks that have been traditionally very weak, I am looking to fade that move. And what you guys can see right here, here's your previous resistance, here's your resistance, Square pushed into it, and I went ahead and took some puts on this yesterday. So yesterday, went ahead and got into Square. This was a trade that I took yesterday on the voice chat in the Discord. We opened this around 9:33 a.m. and we closed it 9:36, 9:37, 9:40. It was a little bit more of a scalp trade, but you guys can see this is the exact same thing I was looking at. Push back higher, just like Roku, into previous resistance and fading that move. We can go ahead and break this down to a shorter term time frame on the 15-minute chart. And you guys can see right as we were pushing into that level, we consolidated for about a day or two, and now we are continuously moving lower. And I believe Square has a lot more to come back down. I believe it could potentially fill this entire earnings gap up if this market stays weak. That's why I wanted to make this video, because if this market stays weak, Square has every potential to come back down, fill that earnings gap up, maybe even back under 100, and I think you still have opportunity here. So there is the second trade, a very similar setup, pushing higher over the last week, back into a previous resistance level, like Roku, like Square, rejecting that level, and you start to get that fade. So that is the second one. And the third one I have for you here is Zoom. All right, guys, here is Zoom on your chart. And if it can't get any more similar, I just don't know what to say. Look at this chart. It looks identical to Roku. So if I go to Roku, here's Roku's chart. You can see we got a push over the last week into previous support that turned into resistance. And if I go back to Zoom, you are going to see how similar this chart is. Here it is, guys. Here is Zoom. You got a push over the last week because of earnings. We pushed into a previous support level right here, turned it into resistance. You also have the 20 SMA acting as resistance, which is the exact same thing as Roku. Look at this. Exact same thing, 20 SMA acting as resistance. And I went ahead and caught this as well. When I saw Zoom push higher on earnings, it had a little click in my mind. I said, hey, Zoom is a very weak stock right now, and anything on the upside, I'm going to look to go ahead and fade that. So here is the trade that I went ahead and took. So here it is, guys. Here is the trade from the 1st of March. You can see this is a trade we took on the voice chat right here, and I was spotting that Zoom was pushing into a previous resistance level. You can see in this chart right here, Zoom was pushing. I'll go ahead and open that. Zoom was pushing back into a 136 resistance level right there, that green area on my chart. Now, if I break this down to the shorter term time frames, that is right here on the day after earnings. Right here, we pushed into that resistance, and I knew that level would be very tough for Zoom to go ahead and break. Now, after seeing Zoom start to fail that level, that green level that I had, if I go back to the daily chart, you can see that is the same level that is drawn out here on the daily. After seeing Zoom push into that level, I had confidence that we would see some downside. Downside because this was a previous support that I don't see Zoom getting over in this current market condition, and looking to see if I could trade that back to the downside. You can see I got into this. We got into some contracts of Zoom, 944, got into some contracts, some put options for 465, scaled out here at 540 for about $1 per contract, and then went ahead and lost a little bit on the last one. But again, with 5 contracts, that was a very nice win. So $418 on Zoom that day, the exact same type of setup. And I'm not too interested, like I said, in sharing the trades. If you guys want to join the Discord, you can see every detail of my trades. but the technical formation is so key right now. This is happening so much in this very weak market, and that's the key. The market conditions. The market conditions are not allowing some of these names to get back above previous support, to get back above and turn it into support. The previous support that we are seeing is turning into resistance everywhere. Now, those are the three that I took, but I want to go ahead and share with you guys a few more names that I've seen this as well. Stocks I didn't trade, but just going to go ahead and show you guys how this is happening even more on a few more names. All right, guys, on your screen, this is CRM. CRM, a stock that pushed higher off of earnings. Where did it push into? It pushed into previous support, and it's turning it into resistance. You are starting to get that slip. Can CRM continue lower? Possibly. But the reason I show you is because you have the exact same formation. You have a push over the last 3 to 4 days and a rejection that is starting to come in. The next one that I am seeing this happen on is SE. SE, a very weak stock that had a push over the last week, sort of pushed into that 20 SMA and previous resistance right around here. It might be a little bit more clean if I go to the 4-hour. Here's the 4-hour chart. And this is actually a trade that I'm in right now. I'm still currently in it. If you're in the chat, you know that. So you can see SE over the last few days got a push back higher into previous resistance. And what did it do again? It turned it into resistance. And this push was off of earnings once again. Another earnings push that went ahead and failed. And over the last 3 days, it's been getting absolutely crushed. Just a very, very similar technical formation. If I go through all these again, I hope they make sense. Roku, push higher. Previous support, resistance. Square, push higher. Previous resistance into resistance again. CRM, push higher. Previous resistance into resistance again. We have a stock like Zoom, which pushed higher off of earnings. You can see right here over the last few days, turning previous support into resistance. And lastly, this stock here, SE, stock that pushed higher off earnings into previous resistance and doing it once again. If you guys are spotting any of these formations, I would say to go ahead and get interested in them, because I just do not see some of these names pushing higher in this current market condition. And if you see any moves to the upside, back into resistance, I would definitely look to fade that move. So guys, not so much of a strict strategy, but more of a technical formation that I really wanted to go ahead and share today. Been finding a lot of success looking for it. I found it on a few names: Roku, Square, CRM, which I didn't play, SC, which I'm in right now, and Zoom pushing higher off earnings and fading once again. Some really clean setups. If you spot them, make sure to go ahead and spot where's that resistance, where's my stop loss, where can I go ahead and potentially play this. I wanted to share this with you guys today. If you guys see this on any more stocks, feel free to drop them down in the comments below. Help the other people watching these videos to get an idea of what you're watching if you are seeing a very similar setup. So with that said, guys, I wanted to say thank you for watching the video. Thank you for being a subscriber. Thank you for staying tuned to the channel. I hope this video helps you out. I hope some of these technical formations that I share help you out. One more thing, we talk about all of these trades on the pre-market live stream. If you're part of the pre-market live stream, you know that we've talked about almost every single one of these setups in the morning, and a lot of you guys have been reaching out, saying that you've taken these plays. So congratulations if you have. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you see this on any more stocks down in the comments below. If you want to join the Discord chat where we trade live every single day, sharing winners, sharing losers, a real trading community that does not hide any of the BS of trading, because it really is a difficult thing and we have to stay transparent. We have to stay honest with ourselves. If you want to go ahead and try to learn from some of the people in the group, make sure to go ahead and check it out. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. Peace.